Brilliant, Mark. Thank you very much. And thank you as well, Rob. Two fantastically informative talks again, as I'm sure everyone will agree. Right, so you'll have noticed we've drifted slightly past 9 o'clock, but what I think I'll do, do feel free to leave if you've got other things to get to, but while we have Mark and Rob, if you do have another sort of 5-10 minutes to stay on, let's just give a couple of questions, I think, if we can, to each speaker. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks, Rob. And everyone else, obviously, feel free to stay if you can. Loads of questions come in for both of you, and I'm going to just pick a couple, just due to time. We'll start with you, Rob. A really interesting issue, a question coming from Laura. And she wants to know about domestic cats and their impact on our wild birds and their sort of breeding success. And also what can we do to reduce the impact of cats?
Yes, it's a tricky one. So we know that cats can take quite a lot of birds, but the evidence so far, at least the ones that I've come across, seems to indicate they actually don't have a detrimental impact on the populations of garden birds. I would encourage people to have their cats out in the garden, especially when there's young birds around. What is likely is the case is they probably have a bigger impact on isolated populations of small mammals, reptiles and amphibians, which are a lot more vulnerable to them. So deterring them is very difficult because there's not very much you can do to deter cats which won't deter other wildlife. You can put down strong smelling things like orange peels. I think coffee grounds are meant to be good for deterring them. I can't speak too much to the efficacy of these. Sometimes it just involves some patience and just chasing them off sometimes, and they'll eventually get bored. Unfortunately, there's not too much I can do. The best thing to do is try, hopefully, politely advise people that do have cats, like, keep them in at dawn and dusk. That's when they're going to be at their greatest risk to wildlife, and make sure they're well fed, make sure they're played with often so they can burn up a lot of energy without having to take it out on your local wildlife.
Great, thank you, Rob. Good advice there. And while we've got you, one final question, I think, and this comes from Chris. A very topical question. He's worried about whether or not there's any signs of bird flu in our garden bird populations as yet.
Bird flu, fortunately, has not affected very many garden birds. I think there's been a few cases of wood pigeons and blackbirds, but generally it hasn't permeated into garden bird populations, probably because the species which have it the most at the moment are wetland birds and coastal birds that come in really, really, really large colonies, where if a few get it, it's going to spread really quickly. There is a chance maybe with something like starlings or wood pigeons that do get together in these big flocks that something could spread. Fortunately, it hasn't happened yet, but there is still plenty of diseases to be careful about. So trichomoniasis is the one that's a really big concern at the moment. It's why we see less in gardens than we used to. It's why chaffinch numbers have fallen really heavily. It's affected collared doves. It can affect other things like wood pigeon, sparrowhawks as well, and wood pigeons. So we really encourage people to clean their feeders. It spreads through feeders. Make sure they're cleaned at least once a week. Make sure there's not old food standing around. If you see sick birds, take down your feeders. No, even if it's not trichomoniasis, if you see sick birds, take down your feeders, because you don't want to encourage birds to congregate in your garden and spread these diseases.
Great, thank you, Rob. There's lots of other questions for you in the chat. I don't know if you have a few minutes to look over them and see if there's any responses you can put in there. That would be wonderful. But I'm going to have to leave it there for you. So thanks again for your time, Rob. We really appreciate that. I do just notice that someone's asked about sharing slides, and I will just say that there's going to be a recording available. So yeah, Mark's given a thumbs up, but we've recorded the event. It's going to be available as a link through the website and on YouTube. So you can go back and have another look at the information there that's of interest to you. So yeah, just to finish off, a couple of questions for Mark. So thanks again, Mark, for your great talk. The first question I want to put to you comes from Caroline. I think she was saying that she used to work for a local authority and she got an awful lot of complaints from the public about less frequent cutting and being accused that it's just being done to save money, to cover up litter, or even just to be lazy, really. what's your advice on how we can change that sort of opinion, sort of public opinion about lawn mowing?
Absolutely, it's the big kind of change management, psychological side of it. Certainly, there's a huge asset out there, and everyone's well aware of it. Some 260,000 hectares of road verge. It's the size of Dorset. It could be the solution, or a very large part of the solution for our nature recovery network. And local authorities are beginning to see this. I think when you communicate with them, cite their own policy literature back to them, and with green strategies emerging, there are now over 100 declarations of climate emergency from local authorities. But when it comes to changing the management of vegetation in high-risk areas alongside thoroughfares, highways, of course, safety has to be the paramount concern. So on approach to tight bends at junctions, there need to be visibility splays. And there will be, of course, the need for a safe pullover zone. So your hot blower exhaust might catch fire in a drought, the grass has grown too tall. You want to be able to see whether a cross drain or a grip has been dug across a verge so that you don't damage your suspension when you pull over in an emergency situation. All of those considerations need to be factored in, and it can quite often necessitate the mowing of a metre or maybe a little more for most verges. And that then, we're advocating that you can collect with certain machinery that we're now trialing and investigating, suction flail harvesting, which shouldn't be applied to the best verges, which shouldn't be applied to all of the verge. Sanctuary strips should be left. But yes, it's about managing expectations. It's about trialing certain areas, gaining buy-in from local residents. And I think really it's so very important to understand how within your 30-mile-an-hour zone as a parish, you might be able to make a real difference, gaining cultivation licenses, talking to your local highways authority so that you adopt the management of your area. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Prove a point and make a positive case study out of something small. And if that's successful, you're then in a far better position to scale it up. Use signage. You can obtain signage you can print out from our website. You can look at case studies on how other people have achieved effective positive change in their neighborhoods, looking at our roadverges.plantlife.org.uk, part of our website. So also look at some of our recorded webinars too, where people have talked through their experiences, what's worked for them. That's a resource that hopefully you can draw on. But certainly, you can't just change in some way as visible as public green space without full consultation. And quite often, it's about opening up with a small scale intervention that then can then be scaled up.
Great advice. Thanks, Mark. I think we're getting there slowly, aren't we, with that? So, yes, positive news. Okay, so one final question for you, if I may, Mark, and this comes from Laura. And she was wondering, quite simply, do you recommend wildflower turfs? We're seeing quite a lot of them now being used. What's Plant Life's view on wildflower turf?
Laura, they're very expensive. And if you're dealing with a small space, that might be an option. Obviously, take care, what's in that turf. Is there an inorganic component? Are there herbicides and fertilizer already in it? Try to find a reputable supplier for that if that's what you see as being a good option for you. I would say, you can follow cues and the Wildflower Society's guidelines for hand gathering seed. Always get the landowner's permission. Never collect from a Schedule 8 protected plant. Very rare. But then never collect more than 20% seed from a population. Count 1, 2, 3, 4. Take the fifth. Never take from every plant. Never take all from any one plant. What fills your palm will fill a seed tray. What fills a seed tray could generate pot plants of a 3-inch size to fill several square meters of lawn. So you can go to your local cemetery if you ask your local vicar. You could go to your local park, and you can start to add wonderful vetches that you find growing in your hedgerows, for example. And that might be more fun to do than simply buying a slab of something that arrives by courier and thumping it down, treading it in, and giving it a water. So yeah, there are far more expensive ways to do things, but there are ways in which you can create an opportunity for nature to emerge rather than build it like a Lego set, so to speak. Not to dismiss the opportunity you have with turf, but create the opportunity, see what arrives, see what's in the seed bank, but then maybe augment with your local sources of seed.